Good evening everyone, welcome to the Planning and Highways Committee meeting today, 21st of February. Just housekeeping rules. Firstly, a brief health and safety introduction. We are not expecting a fire drill, but if the alarm does sound, please make your way to the nearest fire exit. The emergency exit at the back of the chambers will take you across the roof, down the fire escape. Take care, as this may be slippery and wet. Or you can exit the way you entered the building through the police station and out of the front or back door. If it is not possible to get to an exit, then the lift lobby is a safety zone in the event of a fire. Under no circumstances should the lift be used. Please make sure that all mobile phones and devices are switched off or on silent. Any individual wishing to video or audio record the meeting may do so. I must inform you that this meeting is being videoed by the Council and will be uploaded to the Council's YouTube channel. Please remember, anyone wishing to speak in the public participation part of the meeting should raise their hand and wait for me as chair to gesture for you to speak. You will be given a maximum of 4 minutes to make your representation, which should be aimed at me as chair. Please state the agenda item which you will be speaking about. Through me as chair, council members or officers may then respond to your point if necessary. You will not automatically be able to reply unless I, as chair, allow you to do so. The full public participation policy and other health policies are available. To all present, please remember to show respect to others in the meeting and avoid interrupting where possible to enable others to follow the meeting. Anyone present felt to be behaving unacceptably will be excluded from the meeting by the chair. Any member of the public looking to leave the meeting should wait for the council officer to escort them out of the building. Thank you. When we come to the planning applications, are you both happy that we just go straight through without having to ask you?
Yeah.
Unless there's anything you want to pick up on?
No.
Okay. Thank you. So, item 1 is apologies for absence.
Thank you. There's an apology from Councillor Elton, and Councillor Goodman is substituting for him, and apology from Councillor Jim Lord, who's on holiday.
Thank you. Disclosure of interest. To deal with any disclosure by members of any disclosable pecuniary interests and interests other than pecuniary interests, as defined under the Seaford Town Council Code of Conduct and Localism Act 2011 in relation to the matters on the agenda. Only myself as the LDC
Thank you.
planning. Thank you. Item 3, public participation. In accordance with Standing Order 3 and Seaford Town Council policy, members of the public will be entitled to speak on general issues concerning this committee on non-planning application matters at this point. People wishing to speak on planning applications may do so immediately before each planning application. Mr. Hill.
6 Church Street, I'm still not happy with the gate over there. And response from Jennifer Baxter, I think it should have gone higher than her, because she's just above the plans. So it should have gone, I know, I've been sent formal complaint in, it goes higher than the next one. So I'm still got to go right again about it. So I'm hoping that this committee will support me when you discuss it.
Okay, well, we have got it on the agenda.
Yes, it is.
So we'll discuss it in full then.
Thank you much.
Thank you. Right. So, planning applications, week commencing the 20th of January. LW stroke 1 stroke 0058, 57 Blushington Road. Councillor Latham.
Yes, I'm happy to support this. I think what's there at the moment is a bit of a mess, and I'm sure this will improve the site and it's essentially replacing faded brickwork and so on, fading doors with new garage doors and an access door. And I see no reason to object to this.
I'll second that.
Well, second that.
Councillor Elijah beat you to it.
Yeah, I second that.
Any other comments? So can I have a show of hands for supporting this application? Thank you. LW/19/0033 Chinese Restaurant, 24A Sutton Avenue. Councillor
I
Freeman.
found this application very difficult. It wouldn't focus in trying to zoom in because it was such a big drawing. Trying to get a real look at what was going on, I was just totally lost.
Yeah.
It's sort of tucked away at the back of the
Mm.
buildings. I mean, it's already quite a cramped residential site, and there's no new builds as far as I can see. Although, as I said, we did object to the use of the restaurant as a commercial restaurant, I think generally it's a pretty well run and well maintained site. So I didn't see a lot to object about, but obviously other members have views on it.
Councillor Lowen.
I'm only surmising, but I think the restaurant's done reasonably well, but possibly whatever a pattern room is, I've got no idea, but presumably that's not been commercially, so it's just adding another apartment to the building, so I would not object to that.
There's a very fancy statement that goes with the application, which didn't really, it had a lot of glossy pictures and a lot of descriptions of how the architects have done this, that and the other in other places in the past, but very little information about exactly what was going on the site. It's Clegg's, very sort of pucker firm of architects, I think based in Canterbury. It looked like it was going to be very useful, but it didn't really amount to much. But I don't really think it's that. I think it's pretty innocuous development from what I could gather on the website.
Councillor
Thank you,
Lowen.
Madam Chair. It's not increasing the floor area at all, it's just changing the use from spa to residential, isn't it? So it seems to me to be perfectly reasonable application.
Councillor Holland.
I've been inside the aforementioned area anyway. It was used for actually production, so you could use it as a play. It was more walking play as opposed to lots of scenery and everything, so people were just wearing normal clothes. So, but they came out the back room, which is the bit which is going to be developed. I mean, it's a flat essentially, isn't it? Two bed. When I say dwelling, that's a little bit maybe ambitious. It's more of a two bedroom flat apartment, so it's big enough for that. I mean, it's you say we're talking about, it's residential over 60s, isn't it?
Yes.
Sort of
Yes.
residents.
Yes.
So it's probably suitable for what they're trying to do. So I think they're still keeping the restaurant bit.
Yes, it's just another part of
The other side.
facilities. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I have a proposal and
I
second?
propose it, sorry.
Thank you,
I'll
Councillor
second
Lowen.
it.
Thank you, Councillor Freeman. And can I have a show of hands, please? That's unanimous. Thank you. LW/19/0032, 2 Shepway Parade, Broad Street. Councillor Freeman.
Does anybody actually know what the salon's going to be for?
I did a bit of detective work because there was nothing on the application site to indicate it other than on the floor plan it said treatment room 1 and treatment room 2. So I looked at the list of uses under D1 in the use classes order because the application just said A1 to D1. And the only feasible one, given that there were treatment rooms indicated, was this provision of medical health services, which is something that's regarded as appropriate in a town centre for a change of use because it's some services which would normally be provided in a town centre location, like opticians, things like that. So I based it on that assumption, And I think it is pretty, you know, with a couple of treatment rooms and a rest room for staff, I think that's sort of as close as I could get to it. But it is a great pity that they don't bother to put in
Yeah.
a couple of paragraphs in the
Yes.
statement to say exactly what it's going to be used for. There's nothing on the application form. Sometimes the application form isn't on the website anyway. When it is, it doesn't really give, you know, enough information. But I think we're pretty sort of reliable information given the.
Yeah, it doesn't sort of really say much, so.
Yeah,
Yes.
clinics, creches or art galleries is D1. So I've had it down as a sort of clinic.
Yeah. Helps a lot.
Thank you very much. Clinic has quite a broad interpretation these days, and I think probably in the response, perhaps we should just mention that and say providing the use to which the clinic refers is an acceptable use.
Yeah.
Because I think I can think of a number that might not be acceptable,
We
which
could-
I won't raise here.
We could point out the lack of relevant information. So yeah, if that's okay with members, and just say we, you know, looking at D1, we assumed it was, or the assumption was that it's some sort of provision of medical services, you know, and if it isn't.
It could be a massage parlour or something, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it's a physio or osteo, that's fine, isn't it? That would be, if it's on down those lines, that's acceptable, isn't
Yeah,
it?
sure, absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
but and it could be broader than that. That's my point.
Yeah.
With Wall Street, after all.
Very good.
Yes. Yeah. Are you
Could be a telling
making
someone.
that as a proposal?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose that we accept, subject to
Yeah.
the use being, what should I say, a generally acceptable medical use.
There's quite a lot of therapy places already around that area. There's a lot of aromatherapy studios and things like that.
I have just
That's
looked
all
at her,
right.
I have just looked at the lady on Facebook, so she seems to be a bona fide therapist of some kind.
Does it say what?
Injectable products,
Where?
Botox.
Botox.
Botox comes to mind, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. It's a pity we have to do our own detective work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's find a second then.
Yes.
Councillor Lowe.
We might be all over coals then first.
So can I have a show of hands supporting this application with the comments? That's unanimous, thank you. Planning applications received week commencing the 27th of January. LW/19/0078, 15 Highlands Road. Councillor Lowe.
This is a property that we've looked at at least once, if not more times before, and there's no detail on the floor plan. The said summer house is very, very large. And I've noticed since I did look at it earlier in the week, there are now some objections coming to the
Yes.
website as well.
I've got
So I
some,
think people are quite suspicious about what it was actually for.
I've got the objection here, I've just run through it. It was before with a couple of pods in the garden for supervised accommodation for vulnerable adults, and an appeal on that refusal was turned down quite firmly by the inspector. That's say for 2 double unit pods in the garden that were quite large. And the objector points out that the appeal was turned down. She quotes the inspector's criticism of the scheme on the appeal, and suggests this is just a backdoor attempt to enlarge the accommodation, you know, as in an alternative way to the way in which to the pods which were the subject of the unsuccessful appeal, and points out that there's no real information about the intended use, which is true. There's not even a floor plan, and the design of it doesn't really look like a summer house. There's no French window, French doors, or whatever, and no sort of not a lot of glass. So not, you know, it's not as if it were going to be very sunny, light and airy. It looks more like a little chalet or log cabin or something like that. So yes, that's, it's a pity about the lack of information, and the suspicion must be from the previous appeal that lack of information is sort of deliberate, because it's an attempt to build a dwelling, an additional dwelling in the garden. As we,
And it's
It's-
a permanent structure.
yeah, it's brick, and
Councillor Freeman.
I'd like to propose we object to it.
Thank you. Councillor
I'd like to second Councillor Freeman's proposal that we object. I think the appeal was upheld on one occasion. Is that right? Was that?
yeah,
And
it was dismissed, right held. So.
yeah, and therefore the principles are the same, aren't they? And therefore, I think we should object.
Perhaps we should add that, we object on the basis that it's, too large, that it's designed more like a unit of, more like a dwelling than a summer
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
And that we're aware of the previous appeal when, when accommodation was turned down. But also add the rider that if it's recommended for approval, then at the very least, a condition should be placed on the consent that it should not be used as a separate dwelling, just in case the officers sort of override the objections and decide that they, on balance, it's okay. But I think the officers would do that anyway, but I think it's worth us saying that, make it clear that we object, but say that if by any chance they let it through, which there should be a very firm condition that it's not used as a dwelling, it's only used as ancillary to the residential use of the property, as a proper summer house should be. Is that okay?
Just wondering, does that mean no overnight?
Well, yes.
What does it mean?
It means like a summer house, like to store garden furniture, to relax in the summer, as a playroom for children or something
Not
like
for
that.
camping,
Yeah, that sort of thing, ancillary to the residential use of the dwelling, rather than as additional separate accommodation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you also put, because of its density, that it's will be unneighbourly?
Yeah. It extends the whole boundary of the whole width of the plot, doesn't it?
And also, we've got no internal plans or anything.
No.
Is it just going to be one big room or?
Yes, that-
We don't know.
I mentioned that as well.
Just
Like a
saying
detail.
it's very unusual with this Darren Moore, isn't it?
Darren,
Usually
yeah.
very good in giving details on plans.
You expect a summer house, but it's made of wood and glass, don't you?
Yeah, and sort of having a big opening.
Yeah, this is
So,
all brick and no
right,
glass.
we're objecting that it's too large. Can you read out what?
It's too large. A design not in keeping with a normal summer house. We're aware that an appeal has been upheld for previously for separate accommodation in the garden, and this could be a further attempt to provide separate accommodation. There are no floor plans, so no detail to go on there, and it's too large, and by extending for the whole width of the plot on the rear boundary, it's unneighbourly and possibly have an adverse effect on the properties behind.
Rather than upheld, overturned.
Yeah. Right.
And you find that as you're proposing, Councillor Freeman?
Sorry.
And any other comments? So can I have a show of hands of objecting to this application? That's unanimous. LW stroke 19 stroke 0067 80 Beacon Drive. Councillor Freeman.
Looked fine to me, and I propose we support the application.
Thank you. Is that found a seconder? Councillor Layton?
Yes, I agree. It's a very significant extension actually, but I think the site can take it, and I think it's been quite sympathetically organised, arranged, from what I can ken from the plan. It's different from the
Any other comments? So can I have a show of hands of supporting this application? Unanimous. LW/19/0030, 2 Bromley Road. Councillor Mullin.
Yeah, this is, obviously it's an infill building. I mean, if you read about it's for a particular use, and I don't know how much we're allowed to take that into consideration really, because, you know, the person could go elsewhere and get accommodation, so it feels very hard-hearted, but I thought it was rather a large house on a small site. I'm very much in two minds about it. I think it is overdevelopment really.
It's where you'd expect the applicant to build an annex to the main property rather than a separate property. Because although, as you say, the personal reasons are quite compelling, we can't really put much weight on them, because also the house, the new house, is very, very little garden, if any. It's rather squeezed. I mean, it can accommodate a house, but it can't really accommodate a house with any garden that's in character with the rest of the road.
Councillor Latham.
Madam Chairman. Yes, I agree with that. I think this is definitely a new dwelling, and I could see no reason why the money couldn't be spent in adapting the existing dwelling rather than making a completely new one. And as you say, as you rightly say, the site would be, I think, overdevelopment. And there's also an archaeology query with regard to the HER report, and there's a caveat on that. I don't know if you tried to get into the HER report online, but all that would come up for me was the front page, which wasn't particularly illuminating, so there's a caveat there. So I think all in all it's overdevelopment, and they should modify the current accommodation.
I'm sure you want to say you're sympathetic to the reasons
Oh, yeah.
put forward, but that feel that an annex to the main house would be more appropriate, and that it's overdevelopment of the plot to provide a new dwelling at the side, something along those lines.
Okay, was that fine? Seconder, thank you. And can I have a show of hands of objecting to this application, of those comments? Thank you. LW/18/0986, 15B Heathfield Road. Sorry, I wasn't who was first. Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This came up under LW 17-00427, and it didn't seem like 2 years to me since we'd looked at this in great detail with regard to the proposed buffering effect on sound of the conifer trees down the drive. And as far as I can see, nothing's changed in that regard. It's still an issue with regard to noise. And this was turned down on appeal, and I see no reason for it to be approved on this particular occasion, so I object.
There was a consent there, yeah.
Councillor.
Oh, I mean, when I looked at it, I walked down there in the end because I couldn't really work out how on earth it was going to work. I mean, basically they've got to knock down a big chunk of their garage to have access to it. I mean, it really is overdevelopment. I mean, it's just put the house in the garden, they've got another one behind it.
Where do we stop?
I think there was a consent granted though after that. That's the problem. But having said that, you know, I think you're entitled to come to the conclusion it's such a bad scheme that even if this is just another variation on the consent that was granted, you still don't want anything to do with it.
Why are they putting a proposal forward?
I don't know. Again, it's an architect's application, and they don't explain the history, and they don't explain why they're putting in this application. They're using the noise and transport reports from the previous
That's
application.
right, yeah.
But it's an architect's application rather than a planner's application. Therefore, they're just relying on the plans, which, you know, you can't always do. So I was a bit flummoxed, but as I say, although it was granted before, it's such a bad scheme that, you know, I don't blame you for, if you want to object again, even if it appears, as far as I can tell, that it's just a small variation of it on the previous consent.
Consistent with this committee.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Anybody? So have we got a proposer that we object to this? Thank you. And was that kind of seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. So comments, does anybody else want to speak on this? Because I think also we include the tandem development,
Yeah.
which there is a policy, isn't
Exactly,
it?
yeah, yeah. You know, well, I could pay lip service in the response to say, you know, we're aware there's consent, but, you know, we consider it such a bad scheme, so contrary to the backland of tandem policy, that we still can't support it. You know, they won't shoot us for it,
No.
hopefully.
Which is the third time it's come before.
Yeah. So, yeah. So yeah. So I'll find the. I think it's something for yeah.
So, yeah.
Whereas the ST4 I think it is. Whereas the standard policy is ST3, but the tandem one is ST4. I'll look that up before I respond anyway.
I mean, to me, you know, there's no point having these policies if they're not abided to. So, right. So, can I have a show of hands of objecting to this application? That's unanimous. Thank you. Planning applications for week commencing the 3rd of February. LW/19/0102, Chinkton House, South Hamsley Lane. Now this is, we've only got a, it's like a street plan, haven't we? That's
It's
pretty.
got colours on it.
I thought somebody would let loose a set of colouring pencils on it. I couldn't make head or tail of the plans.
Well, they haven't given us anything, so it suggests we just say that in view of the fact there's only a location plan on the website, the committee was unable to come to any conclusion and make any comment, and simple as that, and that gives them the message anyway. But as I say, I think it was a pretty technical application anyway.
Yes.
Can I propose that we say what Jeff's just said?
Yes, yeah. Is that fine to second? Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No. So can I have a show of hands, please? That's unanimous. Thank you. LW, no, sorry. Planning applications for week commencing the 10th of February. None was listed for that week. So we go on to Tree Works applications. So 2W/19/0011/2PO 1 Tudor Manor Gardens.
There's a photo there. In case I'm But there's no additional information on the website other than the photograph, just the description about the lopping and pruning of the ground by 50% to eliminate ash dieback and prevent further debris falling.
I feel that these trees do soften that development, and I think reducing them by 50% is quite a significant amount. Councillor Lowe.
I think it's, what we usually say really is that we need an expert to know. I mean, if there is genuine dieback and they are action, I mean, I just almost feel that I'd rather leave it to the tree expert than
It says eliminate dieback rather than cut back dieback.
yes.
So that's what that's why I thought. Councillor even.
I was going to say, even with 50% reduction, now still quite substantial trees though. Yeah.
It's up to you, you know, what you feel.
Well, I propose we support.
Okay, does that find a seconder?
I'll second them.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? And can I have a show of hands, please? So that's unanimous. TW stroke 19 stroke 0012 stroke TPO 2 Willow Drive.
This is the only plan on the website on this one, so it doesn't really say.
This is,
Again, that's all the information that was on the application.
Could you explain or define compromised structural integrity? Is that compromised structural integrity
I
right?
suppose if you've got stems coming off it, they need to be cut off because they're taking sort of affecting the health of the main stem or something like that, perhaps.
I don't understand.
Yeah. But it is, you can get double stems, triple stems. That's what it seems to be, I think.
Probably keep them to the shape of the tree.
Yeah. So it's becoming a bit lopsided or yeah. But yeah, compromise is a bit sort of airy-fairy, isn't it? Yeah, adversely affecting the structural integrity of the tree or something like that would be better, wouldn't it? It's all, I'm sure it's all to do with the health of the trees.
So, any comments? Can I have a proposer and seconder for if you guys support this application?
I propose we support it. I'm sure it's about the trees that else on the place.
Getting into each other, I think it's to keep
Yeah.
them touching each other, isn't it?
So seconded by Councillor Barton. So can I have a show of hands, please? That's unanimous. Right. Agenda item 5. To inform the committee of the latest position with regard to Lewis District and South Downs National Park Authority local plans. And if you want to respond or vote the report.
I'm able to add a bit of information. Where I say further information on the plan will be reported when the arrangements for the examination public are being confirmed. The hearings, it's been confirmed, will take place between the 2nd and the 12th of April. And there'll be a timetable devised by the programme officer who works on behalf of the inspector. He's an independent consultant who works with the liaisons between the inspector and the local authority for the as to which policies are going to be discussed when, and so that all the objectors who want to speak are informed by the programme officer as to when and where those objections will be heard. Councillor Lowe has been involved in this a lot more than I have. I mean, I've been aware of what's going to be going on about the particular policy relating to the expansion of the harbour across the commercial area adjacent to the harbour across the port access road. So perhaps she wants to add a bit of further detail.
Actually, while we've been sitting here, I've just had an email from who said, organiser, just actually confirming what you've just said. I mean, I did look at the documentation this afternoon. There are 900 pages of objections, including our own.
It's the whole of volume 3.
Yes, the whole of volume 3.
Yeah. I've downloaded it. It took about half an hour.
So there's an awful lot to read on it, but there will be. I've been invited. Obviously, I've got the opportunity as I put in my own personal objection, and also of course the town council did as well. So at some point, I'm very happy to go along and represent the council if that's what you want me to do. Not in a personal capacity, because I think our objections are all on the same lines anyway.
Yes.
I mean, it's nothing different. But one thing that has come up today, just to let people know, which which worries me a lot, the great deal, and it is being talked about, is the fact that they've actually amended the policy. So the policy that's going to the inspector is not the one that we objected to or that was voted on at Lewes District Council. They've altered the wording, and quite significantly in some respects, because in the original one they talked about that, you know, if you remember, it's E1, it's that area being used for employment uses, and it's the new wording now says, I wrote it down, development will be permitted, development of any kind, what kind, just development, will be permitted subject to compliance with all appropriate development plan policies. So they've actually changed the wording of the plan, and so I think that is going to be something that's raised pretty quickly about how can they do that.
Yes, I mean, there should be would normally be a further round of responses to modifications. Perhaps they feel like they've got to stop it somewhere, but even so, if they change it that significantly, you'd think they'd have another round. It would be up against time restrictions as far as the adoption's concerned.
So, I mean, that's where we are really, and obviously that Community Action New Haven, which, as you know, is a mixture of people, and I think New Haven Town Council have got very involved now, whereas they weren't before, are discussing all of these things at the moment. So
Probably
that's where we
Susie
are,
Mullins is there for New Haven.
Yes, she is, yeah.
Yeah, I've worked with her before.
Yeah, so that's where we are really with it. So they are looking at this revised wording and seeing what can be done about that. We obviously, as you've already said, there's no, it's between the 2nd and the 12th, and it is Lewes Plan Part 2, so it involves an awful lot of other things other than E1, so I assume there'll just be half a day or perhaps even only a couple of hours on E1, so I don't know how many speakers they will take, but...
It's one of the policies with the most objections, I think, as it's got a volume of representations all to itself, and there's about 10 volumes altogether. But I think, you know, if you wanted to request Councillor Lower to represent the Town Council, I mean, if there are any, these modifications, I mean, it's a bit late to keep going backwards and forwards. I think she knows what your objections are, and she said they're in line with her own objections, and she can use her discretion to modify the representations in line with the alterations that have been made to the policies that she's just mentioned, rather than keep having to go backwards and forwards and getting formal objections. I mean, it's that's what I would suggest anyway, because I think
We've probably got 2 planning meetings at least before this,
I
so
suppose
I could report back on any updates.
yeah. We could put an item on the next meeting for it,
Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Lower for her very kind offer, and I would like to propose we accept that wholeheartedly. I think Councillor Lower has more experience on this almost than anybody else.
Councillor Lowe is happy to, I suppose, represent this committee on behalf of the City Town Council.
Just on the back of that, it seems to me if there are sort of 10 volumes and the objections are greater than sort of anything else we've ever seen, what do you have to do to actually overturn an application? It seems quite extraordinary to me, no matter how many hours of people's time, no matter how good the responses are. It's a bit like the town parade scaffolding, in fact much greater. And for some extraordinary reason, which is completely beyond me, the officers or the powers that be, whoever they are, say, oh yes, we know what you say, and then we're going to do it anyway. That to me is just absurd.
It depends on, a bit like an ordinary planning appeal, it really comes down to the inspector's personal view on things. They latch onto different things in the plan. Sometimes they latch onto things which there isn't a lot of hoo-ha about. You know, they decide that they don't like something which is not really that controversial.
Who runs things? Is it?
It's the planning inspectorate at Bristol, the same agency that runs the ordinary planning
appeal. Like the civil servants running the government, you know.
It's an agency, yeah. Shall I put an item on the next agenda, then
Just an update.
then if you want to report about modifications, we can give you a resolution. But I will notify formally the programme officer that we want to speak and that you will be speaking for us. That's okay.
So if I put a recommendation to elect Councillor Lowe to represent
Mhm.
this committee, Sif Town Council, this committee, so
For the examination of
we'll do
public.
it,
Yeah.
yeah. So can I have a proposer and seconder?
Seconder.
Councillor Lowe, and can I have a show of hands, please?
Yeah.
That's unanimous. So you're elected, Councillor Lowe, thank you very much.
So that's for the E1 bit mainly though, isn't it?
Only
You
the-
wouldn't want to attend the
yes,
whole
I'm
lot,
not
would you?
speaking on anything else.
So any other comments? Because we also have got the South Wales National Park.
Yeah, that's not so
Bamboo
controversial, but it's
Yes.
running in parallel
Yeah.
in a way, but
So no further comments.
it'll be good that there's a new plan nearly adopted, because that means, the policies will be quite strong for a few years at least.
Okay, so that's fine. Agenda item 6. To inform the committee of recent issues with regard to the new trunk gate and trellis at 6 Church Street. The recommendations were recommended to forward any further comments on the case to Lewes District Council.
I've just circulated a few copies of Mr Hill's complaint. It's always been a difficult issue, because firstly there is the fact that the gate, there's no doubt, I think that the gate and trellis do look out of place in conservation area. But on the other hand, it's clear that the shop needed to stop people throwing unwanted donations, whatever you like to call them, over the gate into the porch. And it's a common problem. I know the chairman's told me about sacks left outside the Scope shop on the main street. You see it in the early mornings quite a bit. Also, so there's that problem, and the problem that they can't really afford anything too elaborate, being a charity shop obviously, and not having the funds to spend too much money on the gate, like an iron or a glass gate or something like that, which would be more in keeping. But it was a bit unusual for the decision to be varied as it was, and for the trellis to be put back after they'd agreed on the main decision, the delegated decision to take the trellis away. And obviously Mr Hill's made this complaint, and I did expect that to be dealt with as a formal complaint, because of the unusual way in which the application was dealt with. But you've heard from him that it's just been dealt with as a sort of normal letter of objection, which has been, in a way, brushed off by the enforcement officer, just saying, well, that's the decision we came to. I think if you want to take it further, there's been a suggestion that it's obviously out of place, even if it's painted in a sympathetic colour, which matches the rendering. It does appear like a sort of temporary stopgap, so you may want to consider making representations to the enforcement and conservation officers that it really shouldn't be allowed to stay once it's no longer needed by the charity shop as a sort of temporary measure to stop people lobbing sacks of rubbish over the top. That if it were a normal shop, that problem wouldn't arise, and therefore you wouldn't need that gate there. So it was a bit late in the day for the shop themselves to go back and vary the decision. So there's no reason why they it shouldn't vary the decision if we were to make those sort of representations. Certainly, it's a bit of a mess the way it's been dealt with. And while Mr. Hill's objection, a formal complaint, is a matter really for him to take up with the council, because I do see his point that he wanted it dealt with as a formal complaint, and it's just been dealt with like any other letter. It hasn't been referred up to anybody higher than the officer who's dealt with it all the way along. But if you want to take it further, then perhaps you might want us just to be slightly critical of the way it's been handled, and suggest that when it all comes down to it, it should really be seen as a temporary measure, and they might like to add a further condition to the consent, even at this stage, that it be removed once the shop changes hands. It might be difficult legally to do that, but I think it shows, that it's a sort of reasonable approach as far as we're concerned, and it gives some support to Mr. Hill's complaint, because we did object in the first place.
Councillor Argent.
I was in their shop last week and asking them about the trays and stuff, because they know I'm a councillor, and they said they're waiting for the timber to dry out and then it will all be painted in keeping.
I see. Well, make it look a bit better, but
It's too late in the day, but I mean, every charity shop has to deal with that problem, don't they? And if they all put gates and fences around it, I mean, it's too late in the day for that, really.
Yeah. It's still, they still leave sacks outside probably.
They will do,
Yeah.
sure they will.
It's just in the long term, but I don't think any shop owner who took it over as a normal shop would want it there anyway. But we could make that point perhaps.
Councillor Goodman.
As one of the four town councillors for this ward, I think quite honestly it should be taken down completely. Nothing but an eyesore. It's disgusting.
Any other comments? Councillor?
I think a point could be made that it's setting a precedent for other charity shops to do the same. And whereas one might get away with it, and yet I personally disagree with it and think they shouldn't get away with it. They're a charity shop as such, they should be there, get there early, take in the stuff. And that's what I would do if I was running a shop like that.
Well, they do that with scope.
Yes, they do that elsewhere. So I think I don't really agree with the arguments, and I think Mr. Hill is exactly right. But the complaint, Mr. Hill's complaint, I think you should just take to the Chief Executive of Lewes District Council and be done with it. But as far as the planning application is concerned, I think we should object, and we should say it's setting a precedent. Other charity shops might feel that they can do the same based on this precedent, and then the town will look a complete and utter mess. And in our considered opinion, they should get up in the mornings in the sacks.
Excuse me, could you just read the letter I gave you tonight?
I've circulated it.
Well, you-
Tonight?
No,
Yeah,
no, sorry.
Um,
Last one speak.
Yes, as I said, it was a brush off really. Further to your letter dated 31st of January, which is a 3-page letter that's been circulated. The planning permission was granted as you stated in your letter, but the planning officer has since agreed that the trellis can remain as the shop found items and rubbish being thrown over the top of the gate. The gate itself and the design and colour is all agreed and has permission, so no further action will be taken in respect of this. And that's all it says. As I say, it's not really a response, but so it's left to us to see whether we want to help and get some sort of further response, at least.
Councillor Freeman.
I support what Councillor Latham said. Really, we should be, it's an eyesore.
It is an eyesore, really.
It just needs to be, the design of the shops over there is all very similar. But when they've got this like barn door with some trellis above it, it looks like
I mean, I mean, the key point is that it's in a conservation
Yeah.
area. This is the key point.
That too, but yeah, that's,
Councillor
we,
Lane.
you know, we give our time freely, and I think to have a letter like that, which is a brush off, saying that we're not prepared to eat humble pie and change our minds, because the decision's been made, is just not acceptable. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable request to have this decision reversed, and it should be reversed.
So, if we make a recommendation, do you think,
Well, sure, I mean, I could say that we go back to the officers and go back to the main conservation officer as well as the enforcement officer to say that, you know, Mr Hill's complaint has been reported to us. The committee still considers that the gate and trellis is an eyesore, although they're aware of the reasons why they're being retained. We consider that Mr Hill's complaint is entirely valid and should be dealt with properly. That the gate and the trellis is setting a precedent for other shops who might want to use temporary measures to stop this problem of rubbish being left. It's in a conservation area, it's an eyesore, and it should at the very least, or the council should ensure at the very least that it's only a temporary measure while age concern occupy.
I think that's a cop-out, I don't think you just say that.
Well,
How long are they going to be there?
I don't know. Yeah, right, well, we'll leave that then.
Yeah.
But that is just not appropriate in a conservation area. If you're going to have a conservation area, you don't have
No.
gates like this. For whatever. The age concern reasons are more like personal reasons,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
one in the, that are taken into account but shouldn't carry enough weight to overturn the conservation area aspect of the issue. Yeah, fine.
Councillor?
I'd like to come in on Jeff, if that is a conservation area then, they're contradicting the code of practice surely, are they not?
Yeah, yes, it's against.
Therefore they shouldn't be there in the
Yeah,
first place.
it's, you put much more emphasis on the character and appearance in a conservation area than you would on other issues like the problem of rubbish. Otherwise there's no point in having them.
Is there a lease or something which says that thou shalt not put bags outside front doors in this area?
It's more common.
No, we can't get involved in that anyway. You know, but that would be a private matter between the shop owner and presumably the age concern or a tenant rather than a freehold owner of the shop. I've got enough to go back to them and you know, make them think anyway.
So can I have a proposal that planning officer sends a letter to the conservation, copies in the enforcement officer. Can I have a proposer and seconder? Councillor Morgan, Councillor Freeman. And can I have a show of hands, please?
That's supported, thank you.
Agenda item 7, to update the committee on the current situation on the development at Town Parade.
I was hoping there'd be somebody along tonight, as there often is, in Town Parade, to sort of update us completely. But I get the impression from talking to people in the know that there's been no work carried out since Christmas, which you know is obviously very worrying. So it's time we thought about making further representations to Lewes District Council. As you remember, there was a Section 215 notice served on the owners. It was coming up for a year ago, 19th of March. And the reason for the notice was that the scaffolding had been there. The scaffolding erected by reason of its height and dominance in the street scene causes material loss of amenity to the local area. The notice has been served due to the significant length of time that has elapsed since the scaffolding was erected without operations being carried out to the exterior of the property. And it's not considered to be, in the ordinary course of events, to keep scaffolding on site that long in the absence of any work being carried out. So we've got the same situation arising again. I think the officers are saying that, you know, now that they might come back and say that the notice was served, it was complied with in that the work started, there's nothing we can do. But I think, firstly, they should give a lot of further thought to threatening action under the notice again, because we've got the same situation of a cessation of work, the scaffolding's still there. The site admittedly looks a bit tidier than it did, because it hasn't got the flapping polythene, and but it's still very prominent. You can see it from all over the town. And I'm personally still getting a lot of emails from residents saying, you know, what are we going to do about it? So that's one thing. I think that there is a possibility legally of reviving the notice because of the same circumstances arising, because the notice is tied to the property. Secondly, I think that having gone through this exercise last year and got to court and resisted an appeal because it was out of time, that the district council owe us, at the very least, even if they find some reason not to take action, revive action under the notice, to write to the owners to say this is still an eyesore, a major eyesore on the edge of a conservation area, in the middle of the historic part of the town centre of Seaford. And it's just, you know, we need at the very least from you a programme of what you intend to do, what work you intend to do when, and how and when this scheme is going to be completed. Because they put a few applications in for minor amendments to the plans.
I haven't seen them being accepted.
Yeah, one was approved, the major one was approved at the end of January. When I say the major one, it was, you know, the most complex one. The other one was a very simple, straightforward one. They shouldn't be able to use those applications as a reason to stop work completely. They may try, but I think the district council owe us, having taken this formal action earlier, to follow it up and say to the owners, you know, it's a very unsatisfactory situation. What do you intend to do about this site? Because, you know, there's been nothing going on for a couple of months.
Sorry, I've got
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Freeman first.
I'm in and out of the radio station quite a lot during the week, and parking my car down there, it's impossible to open the passenger door because the scaffolding is right up next to the edge of the pavement. And it really is. And you get people having to walk in the road, especially if you've got buggies, prams, or they're in wheelchairs. And it's dangerous down that road.
Just Saxon Lane.
Yeah.
I am going to bring it up at the SLR meeting with the officers from East Sussex County Council. I mean, it won't be the first time I've mentioned it. I must have mentioned it probably for a few months, but it will be, you know, refresh their minds again.
How long is it going to stay there?
Well, yes, that's what we want to know, but there's no point in... Well,
You wonder whether they've got a 99-year lease on scaffolding or something. It's, you know, it is absurd, actually. We're going round and round and round in circles. You know, we had this discussion a year ago, 2 years ago. It goes on and on and on, and they treat us with contempt. So I think you ought to use the word contempt in your reply, if that's possible. And also, I think it's they're so thick-skinned that a letter from Lewis District Council would be just like water off a duck's back. So we need to do more than just write letters and go around in circles.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask a question about, I understand that Gary, I can't think of his surname, in the barbers,
Yeah.
is he moving shops?
He's going to the one next door,
But
isn't he?
does that mean he's been in touch with the owners? He must have been to do that. I just wondered.
I can pop in tomorrow and ask him.
I was going, no, I meant to go there today, I forgot. I just wondered if somebody else already knew, because And if he's doing that, he's got to have some permission or some contact or communication with the owners, mustn't he?
Because they were here with the last meeting, because you were on holiday, and they're refurbishing that. I mean, if I was in their position, I wouldn't be spending money out unless I've got some guarantees.
I will go in there then tomorrow and find.
Can I have your okay to also say to Lewis District that this sort of situation, if it were repeated in Lewis Town Centre, would there be a
Yes.
complete outcry and instant action taken? And it does make it, I think, makes it appear that Seaford's a bit of a poor relation, because it's not a storm in a teacup or anything. It's a major problem, which and they can't play it down forever. But as I said, as a town council, we've just got no power. We write to the developers.
But
But nothing else.
if members are agreeable to also copy in the chief exec
Yeah.
and in Fitzpatrick,
Yes.
That's fine.
because they're the two people which Councillor Olivia Hunman and myself met last year, and it did get the ball rolling, and I think they should be put into the picture again.
As I mentioned, Mr Hill's complaint as well at the same time.
Yeah.
And as I say, it's for him to take it up personally as it's his complaint, but we will sort of mention it and lend our support to that.
Okay, so can I have a proposal that our planning officer writes another letter? Thank you, Councillor Goodman, seconded by Councillor Latham, and show of hands,
It's
please.
all right, I enjoy these sort of letters.
Thank you.
Kind of you.
Poetry.
Yeah.
Fee,
I don't get paid.
cup of tea.
Right. So, agenda item 8, to inform the committee of the proposed road closure for Good Friday procession of Witness. And I mean, this has been happening for many a year, and I think it always seems to run quite smoothly, but if there is any comments, Councillor Freeman?
Those who accept it,
Shirley?
whatever. Sorry,
Yeah, if we don't make any further
No.
comments.
we support it.
Mr Holland's application.
Yeah.
So it's all internal, isn't it? Internal roads, it's not away from the internal.
As I say, it's the same route
Yeah.
every year. Okay, is that fine, seconder? Councillor, and show of hands, please. That's great, yes. Thank you. Agenda item 9, update report on the discussions on LDC, and we all seem to,
I seem to remember some members didn't think that fence was too bad, but it's been refused. That's the retrospective application for fencing.
I can't imagine which member that might have been.
But anyway, it was refused.
I mean, I think it's quite good that our decisions are matching those district's decisions, which I think is very good. Well done. So there's no comment, the report to be noted. And that concludes this meeting at 2 minutes past 8. Thank you everybody for coming.